Good evening, everyone, and welcome. The date is September 19th, 2022, and before we begin this evening's City Council meeting, we have two public hearings on two ordinances. One's going to be Ordinance 1084 and one's Ordinance 1085. We'll start with Ordinance 1084 concerning an extension of temporary moratorium on short-term rentals. Madam Secretary, can you please read the header?
This is an ordinance by the Mayor and City Council of Havre, Maryland, adopted pursuant to the authority of Article 11E of the Maryland Constitution, the Local Government Article and Land Use Article of Annotated Code of Maryland, and Sections 33 and 34 of the Havre City Charter to extend the temporary moratorium on the approval and issuance of permits within the city's municipal limits for short-term rentals.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing on Ordinance 1084. Is there any member in the audience this evening here to speak on Ordinance 1084? Any comments from the council? Okay, without any comments from the citizens or the council, I'll now close public hearing on Ordinance 1084. The time is 7:02. We will move to a public hearing on Ordinance 1085 concerning amending Chapter 25, Article 8, Youth Commission. Madam Secretary, may you please read the header?
An ordinance by the Mayor and City Council of Havre, Maryland, adopted pursuant to the authority of Article 11E of the Maryland Constitution, the Local Government Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, and Sections 33 and 34 of the Havre City Charter to amend Chapter 25, Article 8, Youth Commission.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Public hearing on ordinance number 1085. Any comments from the public on ordinance 1085? Any comments from the council? Okay. Without any comments from the council or for the public or the council, I will now end public hearing on ordinance 1085. The time is now 7:03 p.m. That concludes the public hearing. We will now go to the council meeting. I call to order a meeting of the Havre Mayor and City Council. The date is September 19th, 2022. The time is now 7:03 p.m. I will call the roll. Council President Ringsager.
Here.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Councilmember Robertson.
Here.
Councilmember Boyer.
Here.
Councilmember Zinner.
Here.
Councilmember Shenegas.
Here.
All council members are present and accounted for. Please join me for the roll call and the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance and opening prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. I would like to kindly ask you to remain standing as I call forward Pastor Vincent Austin of Agape Church. Welcome and thank you very much for being here this evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you for having me. Good evening, City Council members and citizens. Please join me for a word of prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you for your enduring love, kindness, and grace towards us that allows us to be gathered here this evening. As we gather on what is this threshold of a new turn of season for us, you remain the same in upholding your word that tells us all authority comes from God and those in positions of authority have been placed there by you. The same in keeping this council under your watchful care and wisdom as they execute the duties of governing that they were sworn to. Lord, you remain the same as you continue to prosper our fair city and guide her in your peace continually towards an increasing productive future. Lord, we thank you for what it will go forward in this chamber tonight, and we will be so very diligent and careful as Havre Gracians to support the good work that this council, assembled by you, puts forward for the good of us all. It's in your mighty name, Jesus, we pray. Amen. And amen. Thank you.
Pastor Austin, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We're going to go to item number 5, approval of minutes. This will be the minutes from the City Council meeting of September 6, 2022. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Zinner, seconded by Councilmember Shenegas. Questions or comments on the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion to approve the city council meeting minutes of September 6, 2022 are approved 6-0 in affirmative. Item 6, citizens from comments. This is the part of this evening's agenda. If you wish to speak on a matter that is on the agenda, now's the time to do so. Or if you're here this evening because you want to speak on any other matter of city business, this is not a time to do so as well. Normally I start out with anyone that filled out a form. I have no form filled out, so I'll be happy to call on the audience in general if anybody wishes to speak. Okay. We'll move on to item number 7, appointments. We have 2 appointments this evening, both for the Planning Commission, and I'm going to hand it off to Council President Ringsager.
All right, sir. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to do them both at the same time, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to reappoint Mr. Warren Hartenstein and Ms. Farhat Shah to the Planning Commission.
Second. Council, I have a motion by the Council President, second by Councilman Martin. This is for the appointment of Mr. Hartenstein and Mr. Shaw. Questions or comments to the appointment, reappointment? Council President?
Both Warren and Farhat are wonderful people. They're very intelligent, and they're the type of people you want on these commissions. They're very thorough and thoughtful in their evaluation of all the issues coming before the Planning Commission, and they've done an excellent job, and they're definitely an asset to the Commission.
Thank you, Council President. Any other further questions or comments? Okay. Council, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed say nay. Reappointment, Mr. Hartenstein and Mrs. Shaw, carries 6-0. In the affirmative. Thank you. We're going to go to item 8, recognitions. This evening we have no recognitions. Item number 9, proclamations. This evening we have no proclamations. Item 10, presentations. We actually have 2 presentations this evening, and the first one's going to be item A. It's going to be a presentation on short-term rentals, the short-term rental moratorium report, and that's going to be done by our Director of Planning, Mr. Tim Boisier.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
In front of you, there should be the report that I've put together. The text of it's only 5 pages, but there are some exhibits. I don't think there's any expectation that everyone should know everything tonight. This is just a presentation that's required as part of the moratorium report. When the actual draft legislation comes out some point in the future, that we can continue to talk about this. I haven't met with any stakeholders in the community yet, so I haven't discussed anything with them. This is just the report that was part of the original requirements in the first moratorium that passed, saying that something needed to come from the Director of Planning concerning short-term rentals. As you remember previously, we already had a workshop on this, so some of these things may already be familiar of things that came out of that workshop. Some of the other, some items might be new. At any point, feel free to stop me, and I'll go over the highlights of this report. So again, according to the moratorium, the Director of Planning was required to put this this report together, research and prepare a report regarding the appropriateness of land use restrictions as it relates to short-term rentals in order to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of residents of Havre de Grace, and to evaluate any impact short-term rentals may have on existing neighborhoods under current zoning classifications. So that was sort of my directive. And what we wanted to look at was, are short-term rentals cohesive with the city comprehensive plan? If so, in what areas are they most appropriate? If there's a proliferation of short-term rentals, will they negatively affect property values or other issues with the city? And lastly, to draft legislation that identifies and regulates issues accordingly. So the policy goals from this were to regulate growth and location of short-term rentals, preserve the residential quality and character of neighborhoods, balance the needs and rights of property owners and neighbors, ensure health and safety of guests and residents, capture tax revenues, support tourism in a balanced way, allow for economic gain for residents, and balance economic activity downtown against economic activity in the city's highway commercial areas. I used a lot of different references for this report. There were a couple groups that had put together legislation. One we had discussed during our workshop, which was from AARP, I believe, which was was it maybe AARP? No, it was Granicus, I'm sorry. They're a company that looks at short-term rentals and helps communities regulate short-term rentals, identify where they are, and help cities get the word out to those people that there are regulations about short-term rentals. There was also another one from the National League of Cities that provided a lot of items that should be looked at and discussed when going through an ordinance. So based on a couple of those documents and some other guiding literature, they felt it was most important that we look at the location and use, the timing, how many days during the year property can be used for short-term rentals, and the manner of the rental, which is, whether we allow guest houses, whether we ensure that people that own the property are on the property, those sorts of issues. So from there, I mentioned to all of you in the workshop that I went to and found a website called AirDNA, which looks at Airbnbs and rentals on Vrbo. And Havre de Grace does really, really well. There's only 35 short-term rentals in the city, but there's a B+ rating for regulation on those rentals. And I think 95% had a 4.5 out of 5 rating or higher. So the rental stock in Havre de Grace for short-term rentals is really good without being regulated currently for safety and all those other issues. So in this case, the economics of short-term rentals sort of is taking care of itself. That 35 was a 41% increase from the first quarter of 2021. So these are something that is potentially picking up. One surprise to me was that most of these rentals are rooms in people's houses. They're not actually the entire house. So that was something that stood out a little bit. Not sure that it necessarily matters too much, but 22 out of those 35 were private rooms within homes. Next, I looked at tax and licensing fees. I worked with Adam, our legislative liaison, on some of this. The city is able to charge a, sorry? No, I didn't know if there was an issue. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Zinner has a question.
Go ahead.
Quick question.
Sure.
I thought you said to interrupt if I had a.
Yep, yeah, go ahead. That's why I stopped, yeah.
Okay, I didn't want you to lose your train
No,
of thought.
no, you're good.
Or me, my train of thought. So when you're talking about the short-term rentals being in private homes, being minimal compared to, or independent homes compared to what's in private homes, how are you counting the apartments at Joe Retro's? Are you counting that as a private home, or are you counting that as in a home?
Yeah, I'm not sure how that's considered. So when a host goes on to Airbnb, you'll select whether it's an apartment or something in your home, and then this counts those. But AirDNA, without paying some larger fees or without getting past the $20 a month fee to kind of get some information, it doesn't break down each individual unit for you. So when the host goes on, out of those 35, 22 of those 35, the host says that it's a apartment, it's a room in their home, okay. And then the other 13 are entire homes. So that's how the host had designated it, but I wasn't able to get any other further information without much more of a
All right. Well,
much greater
we can
payment.
uncover that as we go along, based on our geography and rentals. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? Okay. So taxing is allowed from the state, and the county also allows it. The city could charge up to 6%. Half of that would go to the county. So the county gets 50 goes to us. Just based on a 2% tax, a 4% tax, which would give the city 2%. I take that back. I'm sorry. It's a 1.5% tax. So it'd be a 3% tax, and including a 15.5% revenue increase over the same period. In the first year, the city could approximately get about $13,500 in revenue, with increases to $15,500 and then almost $18,000 in the final year, if revenues continue to increase and the number of Airbnbs continue to increase at the rate that they've increased in the past. So concerning building code standards, I know safety was an issue when we talked about long-term rentals. That doesn't necessarily seem to be an issue here. Like I said, most of these things are regulated by just the economic environment of short-term rentals. If something is unsafe or in bad condition, it's going to get a bad rating. People aren't going to go to it. That seems to be the way that it works. However, there are some minimal safety issues we should look at as far as carbon monoxide detectors, smoke detectors, that sort of thing. So we do have a minimal list that we have internally that we sort of put together to look at, but it's a different animal than we've talked about with long-term rentals and what we're looking at there, because people are more in and out of these places, and because they get rated and all that stuff, they kind of they take care of themselves. Bad places won't get rented out for very long. So I looked at the comprehensive plan and zoning. Obviously, when our comprehensive plan was adopted in 2010, there wasn't Airbnb or Vrbo or anything like that. But it does discuss the need for more hotels and hotel space and that sort of thing. These are smaller, more concentrated in the downtown area, so they wouldn't affect any future possibility for hotels on 40 or off 155. They wouldn't really be competing against each other. So in that case, in that situation, it meets some of the standards, most of the standards in the comprehensive plan, while not addressing short-term rentals specifically in the comprehensive plan. I discuss a short-term rental overlay district, which I'll show you a map at the end. Basically, planners have a rule that nobody wants to walk more than 15 minutes. So if we are trying to keep people downtown that are visiting and not wanting to compete against potential hotels in the future on our highway commercial areas, 15 minutes from the downtown area kind of keeps everybody within 40 and kind of concentrated in the downtown. So I do have a map I put together with a preliminary idea of where we would try to keep Airbnbs. So instead of saying they should be allowed in R1 or they should be allowed in RB, they could be allowed in several districts as long as it's sort of in this 15-minute walking range from the amenities that we have downtown. And I'll get to that in a minute. I discuss in here a little bit about homeowner associations, just that there's homeowner associations have their own rules, and that in places where there may be short-term rentals where there's homeowner associations, that they'll need to work that out with their homeowners association. That basically our law wouldn't go above and beyond the laws of their HOAs. There is a short discussion about non-compliance. Basically, once we get the word out and let everybody know that we're regulating short-term rentals, if we're using one of the host compliance softwares or AirDNA, and we find that somebody hasn't licensed their rental and they're not reporting things properly, I recommended a $100 per fee incident. There won't be a lot of inspections with this, unless we see a review on when we get a host compliance software or somebody calls, we get some review saying that something's completely unsafe, then we would send somebody out to look. But it would be manageable since there's only 35 units right now. Even if that grew at 15% per year, that might get you to 50, 60 units. I do recommend that there not be allowed more than I think it was 60 units. Yeah, set a cap of 60 units for now, and then allow that to grow over time so we can see kind of what the effect would be once we get to 60, if it gets that high, and what the effects are in the neighborhood, then decide if we wanted to increase that. And then I discuss a little bit of the needs we would have. We probably could be able to use our existing code enforcement officer. We did touch base with the county. County says they don't deal with short-term rentals and they wouldn't be interested in inspecting those on our behalf. So this would be something that the city would have to solely take care of, where currently we work with the county on all inspections, plumbing, mechanical, building, electrical. So this would be something we would have to do on our own. I spoke with one software company that does this host compliance software, and their fee was $8,100. I'm not sure if that's high or low. We would have to put out an RFP eventually if this is somewhat we wanted to go. But we would need to tax potentially in a way so we could have that revenue for the software, or we'd have to find some way to pay for it in the agenda. Mm-hmm.
My question would be, what about Edmunds? I know we've been using Edmunds and we've been finding various programs in Edmunds. Is that a possibility that it may be a program in Edmunds that we just don't know about yet?
No, I don't think so. So this is host compliance software. So they specifically work with hotels, Airbnbs, this sort of thing. So they're gathering information that we wouldn't be able to otherwise get, that we would require people to self-report on. And so they're really scouring the internet, seeing where people are booking, what websites they're using to book, approximately how much they're seeing what their vacancy rate is, and then how much they're getting per night and the amount of revenue that they're bringing in. So it's not anything from what Edmunds is, where we're putting in information for financial information. This is them getting information saying, hey, we have 17 people, for instance, in Havre de Grace that have Airbnbs. And then we look and we say, oh, okay, well, we only have 15 licenses, so who are the two they're not including? And then they would have that information. So it's not really something that they would have in Edmunds. Now, the financials that we would get from potentially getting taxes from this, any fees that came from this, that would still all go through the Edmunds system, and that's something we would work with George on.
And a follow-up on that, so the $8,100 approximate, is that a yearly fee or is that a one-time fee? Because it looks like that's about 50% of what you're talking about tax revenue would be, so.
Yep, that's an annual fee. The biggest part is the yearly subscription, where they tell you, who has Airbnbs, where they're located, how much they're getting, and how often people are staying there. That's the biggest chunk. Then I think that was somewhere in the 5,000 to 6,000 range. And then there were some other things they added on. And then there's stuff that's not included in that 8,100 that you could also get. So there's like a 24-hour hotline. So they can, instead of calling us, there's an answering service. So they're not calling the police. So there's a potential of like an answering service for people to call if there's issues, and then they would contact us or send us an email, or, however we set that up. Other smaller customer service related stuff, they'll send out letters for us if there's non-compliance issues. They'll just automatically send people letters if that's something we wanted to add on. It just depends on how involved and how much capacity the city has to take this on. But most of that 8,100 is just to find out who's doing what.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And this was just one software. There's multiple softwares out there, so this would definitely require an RFP to see who's doing what and for what price. So just a final summary of recommendations. There is a short-term rental statute from Maryland that was used in Baltimore, to kind of model for our local ordinance. I went through the city council workshop discussion and integrated some of the things that we spoke about in there. Need to reach out to local landlords that are in the short-term rental business and discuss this with them. We've already examined some building codes, fire safety codes, that sort of thing, but look at those basic standards that should be in all places where people are staying to make sure that they're there. Require a license with an annual fee. Create a zoning overlay district that's appropriate for short-term rentals. Provide exceptions for areas where Airbnbs exist currently that are outside of our area. Kind of grandfather those in. There wouldn't be too many of them, but make that an opportunity if that's something the council is interested in doing. We have a system of rules and regulations for tenants, hosts, and hosting platforms. It's just that thing when you walk into a hotel room and it tells you when your quiet time is, if something's wrong, what you should do about it, etc. Look at the host compliance software. Develop an online electronic application. That's one of the other features of most of these host compliance softwares, is the ability to apply for a license, pay online, and then receive that license electronically. Have an annual report system for everyone here at City Council on the performance and effects of short-term rentals in the city. Prevent negative impacts on first responder system by putting in a rental tax and trying to limit the type and location of short-term rentals. And ensuring the hosting platforms and hosts are keeping records as necessary for review and audit of the licensing program. Appendix A is just the moratorium. We're putting in another one, or we're planning on extending the one that we have already in place. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the language with that. Appendix B are just a bunch of printouts from the AirDNA site, so everyone can see what I was looking at, just to look at the growth and type and information that's available on that AirDNA site, just statistically, just in case anybody was curious. And then in Section C is the legislation the enabling legislation from the state and the county that would allow us to put a tax on short-term rentals if that was something the council was interested in. And then in D is this proposed short-term rental overlay district, if you want to call it that. It doesn't need necessarily be a zoning district, but the red area on the map is our historic district. And then that blue area around it, not the dotted dark blue line, but that light blue area, that's the kind of quarter mile, half mile, 15-minute walk. And so from there, you can kind of see if you keep everything, there's a little part that comes out of 40, there's a little part that's in front of the high school and middle school, that wouldn't really count, but this, in comparison within the dotted blue line, and where most of the rentals are located within the city already fall in within this dotted blue line. So it basically would be 40 to the north, Juniata to the west, and then the river to the south and the east would kind of be the area where we would try to contain those initial 60 licenses for short-term rentals, see how things grow and expand, and then what effect it has on the city, and then from there to decide whether to move that boundary, to not move that boundary, to allow more licenses. So that is what we've come up with so far in this report. Whoever wants to go first.
Okay. You mentioned that it's the historic district in the orangish reddish color. Does it also include the arts and entertainment district? And can that be called out so we can see where the arts and entertainment district is in this as well?
Yeah, I can call that. I'm not sure where the arts and entertainment district is, but yeah, it overlays the historic district, so it should all be within there. But I can add that to the map and get that back to you also.
Yeah, I think the A&E district's encompassed with basically the historic district as it reads here. So is that air DNA where you got the proposed cap of 60 licensed short-term rentals? Is that based on population size? I mean, where does that number come from?
Yeah, so there were 42 Airbnbs within the zip code and 35 within the city. So the idea would be that with the amount of growth that was occurring with Airbnbs, that it could get to that 60 number, and that would kind of be a safe number where it's not too crazy high, but also but leaves room for growth if that's what want to happen. But I wouldn't want to say that it's arbitrary, but it's definitely something that can be adjusted. Maybe it needs to be down to 45 or 50. I mean, I'm not exactly sure. 60 felt like a good number with the amount of growth that was going on already, with about 15% growth in revenue per year, and then kind of having it concentrated in this area, we could see how it affected parking and those sorts of things. I think anything much less than 60, you wouldn't really get a good idea of what effect there would be, because there's probably that type of rental already going on. We're just not sure of it so far.
Yeah, so, I mean, if this is the path that we go down, I definitely agree that a cap would be necessary, especially since you're talking about a relatively small area. We definitely don't want to push residency out of the downtown, so, all right, thanks.
And just to piggyback off that, one of the recommendations from some of the literature is that you can require that licenses are only for 4 months out of the year, 6 months out of the year, and the rest of the time they have to be the person's home, or somebody else has to stay there. So even the time frame for when those are open, if you didn't want to make that if you didn't want to have it where things were totally becoming Airbnbs year round, there is the opportunity to kind of balance that in legislation. Good.
Any further questions from council? Councilmember Boyer.
Without reading through this, so how would you define short-term rental? What time period is it?
30 days or less.
30 days or less, okay. And I bring this up because, I work on EPG, and we do have a lot of situations where there'll be a contractor that'll come in for a short, brief period, and they need to rent for a short period of time. It's impossible to get into a rental for a year, et cetera. So having that flexibility is kind of important for a defense community like we live in. Even people who are moved to this area that are coming from being like, who are coming from Germany to a more permanent position. They kind of want to have a short place to land before they, and figure out the lay of the land before, you can identify with this.
I can.
Before they purchase or get into a longer term thing. So that's why I'm asking, is 30 days
Yeah,
reasonable or not?
yeah, I mean, well, anything that's rented 30 days or less falls under these guidelines. I think where the city was moving or thinking about moving, or if Chapter 147 on rentals is being enforced, the rules would be much more stringent for those rentals that are over 30 days, which kind of, I think for it to be worthwhile for most landlords, that in that situation, those rules are so stringent that they want to rent for a longer period of time. Most places have the definition at 30 days. If it went to 60, it would make it, I think, a bit easier for some of the landlords. Because I don't even know that many people are even doing Airbnbs for 30 days. It's, a weekend or a week or something like that. I don't know that they're really using them for more midterm, let's say, type stuff. But yeah, that definition could be changed for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyer. Any other questions? Councilmember Zinner?
Thank you. I just wanted to make a couple comments. Thanks for pulling all these statistics together, Tim. I really appreciate it. And we did have that one conversation where Jolene Foster was here and gave us quite a bit of information regarding her rentals and how she handles them. And I find it very gratifying that we have a B+ rating already. And a lot of these places, because they almost self-report due to their guests, so the people that are running these Airbnbs and VRBOs and whatever other companies are out there that you can work through, they do know that the grading system is paramount to their success. So I think we have a little bit less issues here in terms of these kinds of rentals versus what we're going to have with long-term rentals and getting compliance there. But I appreciate the work that you did on this, and I'm happy to see that we have a B+ rating. I'm not surprised, but I'm just glad to see it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Zinner. Any other questions or comments? Tim, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For a great presentation. Appreciate the information. And Council, everybody have a packet, Council? Everybody got a packet? Okay, good. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go to item B in presentations, which is Food Force. And a member of the Havre Grace Green Team is here with us this evening, Ms. Carol Zimmerman. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mayor Martin and City Council members. I'm here to talk about the Todd Park Food Forest. And, we have a memorandum of understanding with the city, the Green Team does. And as part of that memorandum, we give an annual report. The last report in 2021 was written and submitted to the city. I don't know if any of you saw that, but I'm here today to give it orally. I'm going to give a little background just to bring everybody up to speed, get us on the same page. The Food Forest started, was that 6 years ago, as the intention was to make it a resource for food that would be available to our community for free. And the Green Team came to the city and proposed this, and the city agreed to it. And with a grant that we received from the State of Maryland's Maryland Urban Community Forest Committee, we got $1,500, and that enabled us to start our planting. And we also got a small grant from Walmart, about $250, if I recall correctly, and quite a few private donations. And we got in-kind support from the city, from the DPW, and that got us going. And every year since, we've added plants, other species, more number of trees and bushes, and also to replace any of those that didn't make it from the previous year. Since then, since our initial grant, we have received other grants. Our biggest one was $5,000 that we got from the Chesapeake Bay Trust, and that was obtained in 2020. With that, we were able to install 3 permaculture beds. Those are beds that surrounded our existing blueberry bushes, and we put in some more blueberry bushes, and other perennials that enhance the soil or provide pollinator opportunities. We put in 2 hybrid chestnut trees under that grant, and our contractor who did this work also conducted a maintenance workshop and developed a master plan for potential future enhancements. So a lot of work was done under that grant. We have received 2 additional grants in 2020. We also got another $1,000 grant from the MUCFC program, and that enabled us to put in an information sign. And although it's not showing on this chart here, we received just this year, about a month ago, we're notified that we got another $1,000 grant that would enable us to put in individual plant signs, and I'll speak more about that in a minute. So that gives you a little background on how we got started. And so let me give you our progress report from May of last year up till the present. As I mentioned, we conducted a maintenance workshop in 2021. Howard EcoWorks, our contractor who did all the installation of the permaculture beds and the chestnut trees, had landscape architects and plant experts on staff who conducted this workshop. There's a photograph of people who attended and where they learned best practices about maintaining those permaculture beds and also dealing with other plants in the food forests. And one of the things that people learned was how to propagate fig trees. You know, we have a fig tree in the food forest, and it's possible to just take a branch from that tree and bury part of it, the stem, in the ground, and lo and behold, you have a new fig tree grow from that. And so there's a photograph of the propagation activity going on there with a sign informing people about that. So that was a maintenance workshop. As I mentioned, we had an informational sign that was erected last year. The cost was covered by that $1,000 grant, but supplemented with funds from the Green Team's own budget. These signs, as you may know, here in the city are surprisingly expensive, $2,500 for these signs. This one was, the artwork was designed by Big House Signs, who does a lot of work for us. But the DPW did the installation of it per the requirements of the city, since it's on city property. So that sign was put in place. The purpose of it was to tell people what the food forest was all about. You know, we have all the plants there, but, you know, you go up to them, you don't know what these are for and all that. So it explains that it is a free resource and gives a little background on, you know, the limited space we have on that sign, but and has you know, logos of all the participating organizations. If you go there now, you'll see that that bed around the sign was also enhanced with some flowers, black-eyed Susans, I think, that were planted there. So that's been in place now for a year. I mentioned the individual plant signs. We put 5 of them up last year. I'm sorry, early this year. These plant signs were ones that some of us who visit a food forest that the DNR installed in Centerville on the Eastern Shore put up. And they were actually very informational, you know, not just giving you the common name and the genus and species like most plant signs in botanical gardens, if you've ever seen them there. In fact, these signs showed pictures of the plant and different parts of the plant, the bark, what the bark looks like, the leaf, the fruit, since this is, you know, a lot of fruiting plants here. And it also gave information about, you know, when to harvest or other food-related information. And so we thought this was great, and the DNR gave us permission to copy their signs for plants that we had in the food forest already. So we did that and installed them this spring. But with our new grant, $1,000 from the DNR's grant program, we'll be able to put up 20 more of these signs next year. And just to give you a little more idea of what these signs contain, here's one for a persimmon. And as I said, it gives more information than your normal plant sign. And the DNR sign gave a fun fact about it, which in this case said the seeds were used to make a coffee substitute in the Civil War. Who knew, you know? And then also information about harvesting it and that sort of thing. So we're going to be putting more of these signs up. They're installed on a 3-foot metal stake in front of the plant that they pertain to. Okay, maintenance of the food forest is done through our adoptive tree program. The idea here is to spread the maintenance among people who are interested in the food forest and will come periodically and take care of their adopted plant. Right now, we have 27 trees, 3 permaculture beds, and we also have a pollinator bed, a separate, just for pollinators. And these are all cared for by 30 people who have adopted 1 or more plants, plus there have been a few extra helpers on occasion. And so a big thank you to all of those who have helped. In fact, we have a couple of council members here who have adopted a tree, and their help is much appreciated. What we do with maintenance is that we call on our volunteers to participate in work days, one in the spring, one in the fall. And there they do weeding and mulching around their plants, and a little bit of pruning if necessary. And we also do planting if we've gotten some new plants to put in. We do occasionally have a winter pruning day. In January of this year, we had a pruning day, and the plants are dormant then, and so you can do some bigger pruning to shape up the plant or take out sections that you don't want to make the tree healthier and more productive. So besides those work days, the adopters also come periodically to their plant and take care of it during the growing season and report any issues to the leader, which would be me. So we try to keep the plants going and healthy throughout the year. Here again, DPW has been a great help to us by providing mulch whenever we need it. In the past, they've provided mulch, but also done things like dig holes and install that sign that I showed you earlier. So a big shout out to the DPW for that. The Susquehanna Hose Company is another partner. They deliver water to a tank that we put in on site if we need water. At any rate, that's what we do with maintenance at the food forest. And here's a picture of our work day from April. And as you can see, we had a good turnout and various things going on there with mulching and weeding. The mulch is really important for a couple reasons. One is that helps keep moisture, prevents or reduces the weeds growing up, keeps moisture around the tree. But really important, it keeps the mowers away from the tree. We had problems with that in the past, that weed whacking or getting mowers close to the trunks of trees can really just kill them if it's severe damage. So we make sure that mulch is there so we can also protect the trees from mowing. But anyway, our adopted tree program is really key to the success of the food forest. Okay, the next steps coming up here, we will hold a maintenance workshop, work day this fall. We have a couple of dead plants that need to be replaced, so we will, and we want to add some more blueberry plants to those beds. So those need to be ordered and then planted this fall. Those individual plant signs that I mentioned, they have to be designed and will be installed next year. And also recruit new adopters. If any of you would like to be a tree adopter or know someone who might, please spread the word. You know, we do have turnovers, people who can't return for one reason or another. So please, you know, get in touch with me, or the Green Team's Gmail address is shown there. And I think that's it. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Council, any questions for Ms. Zimmerman? So you have over 30 tree adopters already.
That's right,
Excellent. That's amazing. The food forest has come a long way.
It sure has, and I know you participated early on.
Might have planted one of the first trees.
That's right.
No, it's great. It's a beautiful thing. We appreciate all the involvement, community involvement, and more importantly, I appreciate the time you took this evening to come here and update the citizens on what a great, the progress of this forest. Didn't look like much at first, but I mean, it's really, I know it was the vision was, it's going to be a fruit-bearing forest, but it's really come a long way. So thank you for everything you've done. The sign looks good. The little border around it with the Black Eyed Susans look good. So it's good stuff.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're going to go to item 11 on this evening's agenda. It's going to be resolutions. We have one resolution, and it's a license agreement. And I'm going to hand this off to Councilmember Shenagus.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I move to introduce calendar resolution concerning a license agreement for an existing porch at 226 South Union Avenue and installation of a fence along Fountain Green Street.
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Shenagus. Do I have a second? Second by the Council President. This is a motion to introduce a counter resolution for a license agreement for an existing porch at 626 South Union Avenue. Questions or comments on the motion to introduce? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion to introduce a counter resolution carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Madam Secretary, can you please read the header of this counter resolution and assign it a number?
Yes. This will be resolution number 2022-27. A resolution by the Mayor and City Council of Havre de Grace, Maryland, pursuant to Sections 33 and 34 of the City Charter and the Local Government Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, for approval of a license agreement for an existing front porch within the right-of-way at 226 South Union Avenue, and installation of a fence within the right-of-way along Fountain Street, and to authorize the mayor to execute such license.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Council to have a motion to adopt counter resolution 2022-27.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Martin, second by Councilmember Zinner. Questions or comments on the resolution?
I'd like to add that this license agreement is...
Councilmember Shenagus.
Oh, thank you.
It's all good. Just a minute.
Yes, thank you. I'm always so eager to speak. So...
The chair recognizes Councilmember Shenagus. How's that?
Thank you.
There we go.
As I was about to say, the license agreement for this 6-foot privacy fence and the addition to the existing porch will be a 5-year agreement for $50. It will expire December 2026, and it should be a nice addition to the home and really look nice and give the family and the community something nice to look at.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Shenagus. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Zinner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a comment. The property in question is clearly under renovation, so I think that this fence can only improve it. And it's only coming out about a foot from the existing fence, right to the sidewalk. And in looking at other properties on Fountain Street, the setbacks are all different, and this really is a setback because it's a side yard. But for the front yards, some of the houses have fences, some of them have no fences, and some of them have a fence that goes right up to the sidewalk where it's proposed here. So I don't see any reason why this should come into question and not be accepted by everybody on the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Zinner. Any further questions or comments? Council, we're going to do a roll call vote on Resolution 2022-27. Councilmember Zinner?
Yes.
Councilmember Shenegis?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Robertson?
Aye.
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Council President Ringsager?
Yes.
By roll call vote of 6-0 in the affirmative, calendar resolution 2022-27, dealing with a license agreement for an existing porch at 226 South Union Avenue and an installation of a fence along Fountain Street is approved by council. Thank you. We're going to go to item 12, ordinances. This evening we have 4 ordinances that we will be introducing. And the first ordinance, item A, is amending Chapter 205 of the zoning as it pertains to accessory dwelling units. And I'm going to hand this off to Councilmember Shenegis, the chair of the Council Planning Committee, for the first reading of this ordinance.
Thank you. Council, I move to introduce ordinance concerning amending Chapter 205 zoning as it pertains to accessory dwelling units in the first reading.
Second.
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Shenegis, seconded by Councilmember Robertson. This is a motion to introduce an ordinance on first reading. Questions or comments on the introduction? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion to introduce ordinance carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Madam Secretary, can you please read the header into the record and assign this ordinance a number?
Yes. This will be ordinance number 1086, an ordinance by the mayor and city council of Havre de Grace, Maryland, adopted pursuant to the local authority of Article 11E of the Maryland Constitution, the local government article of the annotated code of Maryland, and sections 33 and 34 of the Havre de Grace City Charter to amend Chapter 205 zoning as it pertains to accessory dwelling units.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Council, I have a motion to adopt ordinance 1086 on first reading. Motion by Councilmember Martin, seconded by the Council President. Questions or comments before we do a roll call vote on first reading?
I would like to,
Councilmember Shenegis?
yes, I would like to say accessory dwelling units, formerly known as cottage units, definitely has an opportunity for 6 different types of foundations for homes, and it's definitely something we want to consider as we change the zoning.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Boyer?
Can we get a little bit of background on this, on where the need stems from and circumstances that have caused it to come to play?
Sure. Mr. Boycier?
Sure. So I think the economy and the city's in an interesting time where there was a big push of people buying houses, and that slowed down, but the economy still stayed strong where people continue to have jobs, and now they're improving their homes. And what we've saw in a lot of places recently when people have requested these cottage dwellings is they're building very large accessory dwelling units above their garages. They're building additions to their home, and they're doing a lot of things that are kind of not characteristic for some of the neighborhoods. But it was allowed in the zoning code. And cottage dwellings are also something that's very specific. So a cottage dwelling would be a detached accessory dwelling unit by these rules, where accessory dwelling units in this case would allow a lot more flexibility, garage apartments, additions to the home, that sort of thing, but does it in a way where the whole lot isn't being taken up, and that it's maintaining the character of the neighborhood. I think also when cottage dwelling was put in, a lot of the environmental rules that we have now weren't in place. And so there's just a lot of stuff with the critical area being in the city and being nearby that lot coverages shouldn't be able to get to 100%. And that was sort of happening with these places. Also, just with short-term rentals and long-term rentals, people are actually almost building full houses on their lots that, sometime in the future could be, 2 homes on one lot instead of an accessory dwelling unit. So this makes it where it's an accessory to the existing house, that the person in the main house has to be the owner of the property, and then that other unit is an accessory to the main unit.
And does this make Havre de Grace conform with other cities within Harford County or in the area?
In Harford County, I'm not sure. I did look at Chevy Chase, Maryland. I looked at Montgomery County. Those were the two where they passed the accessory dwelling unit ordinances. This ordinance is very similar, although our lot sizes are, the requirements are a bit less. I think they allow a little bit bigger units in Chevy Chase, but they also have bigger lots in Chevy Chase, Maryland. So it was based off of model ordinances from AARP, which I discussed during our workshop, and some others I would have to look up during the workshop, information that came from our workshop, and then a couple of ordinances from Maryland and smaller communities.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Zinner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It also should be noted in here that the amendment to the ordinance is removing all of the specifics around cottage dwellings, because we're going to be using the ADU terminology to encompass that. And there are also, for people at home that take the time to read this, lines 55 through 58, there are limits to the size of what an ADU can be, whether it's an attached ADU or whether it's a detached ADU. And that's important because we finally maybe get a little bit of a grip on the total land usage and also the size of an ADU unit, so that we're not seeing, as Mr. Boissier pointed out, basically two single-family homes detached on a single lot. So I think this is a very good thing for the city, and spells out requirements and limitations, and is worth our consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Zinner. Councilmember Martin?
I believe one other thing that we need to consider in today's society, today's economy, we're living longer. More people are moving in or moving their parents in with them. So these, what you want to call, would give the ability for us to move a parent or a child back in with us, because right now that need is there. And so I think it's the right step moving forward for our community.
Thank you, Councilmember Martin. Any other further questions or comments? Council, I'm going to do a roll call vote on ordinance 1086. This is a first reading roll call vote. Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Councilmember Ringsager?
Yes.
Councilmember Zinner?
Yes.
Councilmember Robertson?
Aye.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneegis?
Yes.
By roll call vote of 6-0 in the affirmative, ordinance 1086 is adopted on first reading. Council President, would you like to have the public hearing at the next council meeting on October 3rd?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, public hearing for ordinance 1086 will occur at the next scheduled city council meeting on Monday, October 3rd at 7 o'clock p.m. Item B, ordinance concerning Chapter 205 zoning as it pertains to a lot of record. This is going to be another first reading, falls under the Planning Department. Councilor Schneegis.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, I move to introduce ordinance concerning amendment Chapter 205 zoning as it pertains to lot of record in the first reading.
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Schneegis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Council President. This is a motion to introduce an ordinance. Questions or comments on the introduction of the ordinance? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion to introduce ordinance concerning amending Chapter 205 zoning as pertains to a lot of record carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Madam Secretary, can you please read the header of this ordinance and the silent number, please?
Yes, this will be ordinance number 1087. An ordinance by the mayor and city council of Havre de Grace, Maryland, adopted pursuant to the authority of Article 11E of the Maryland Constitution, the local government article of the annotated code of Maryland, and sections 33 and 34 of the Havre de Grace City Charter, to amend Chapter 205 zoning as it pertains to lot of record.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Council, I have a motion to adopt ordinance 1087 on first reading.
Second.
Motion by the Council President, second by Councilmember Zinner. Questions or comments on 1087 before the roll call vote? Councilmember Zinner?
Is it chapter 205 or 206?
I have 205.
Okay. I thought when I was looking through
Sure.
the charter, it was,
No problem.
I was looking at 206, but
title
anyway,
is 206.
that's fine. It says 206 on the cover sheet.
205, correct?
Thank you. Yep.
205. Yeah, 205. Thank you, Councilmember Zinner. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Boyer?
Similar to my last one, what brought this before us, and what's it trying to solve, and just for the purpose of the community?
Okay, for the purpose of the community, if you look at single-family detached dwellings in a 800-foot square area, you want to have some open space for families, so the house is not to exceed over 75% of the total area. What brought it to our attention, I'd like to defer that to our planning director, Tim Boissier.
Thanks. Yeah, again, it's the same situation I said with accessory dwelling units. We're at that point where people are able to remodel their homes, and people were building all kinds of stuff on lots that were, 10,000 plus square feet, and they were saying, well, the rule is that if it was recorded sometime before 1982, that they didn't have to follow any of the other lot coverage rules, but they could, and they should with all the new environmental standards and many of the things that Councilwoman Shenegas had mentioned. They just didn't have to. So what this really looks to do is kind of reel in the things that could follow our standards, but also for those smaller substandard lots, leave wiggle room so they can grow. So for instance, Habitat for Humanity, they're grabbing smaller lots and building, smaller houses that work for the population that they work for. But sometimes under ordinances, if they're very strict, they wouldn't allow houses to be built on lots less than 5,000 or lots less than 8,000 or to have smaller setbacks. So this balances that. It balances the original rule of if you were recorded before 1982 and had a single family home, what you could do there, and allows for infill in smaller substandard lots, but also requires those lots that are much larger to comply, because it's been 40 years since the city's had zoning put in, and with the standards and everything today, it just has to be modernized so everybody fits in if they can fit in.
And we've had recently some people renovating that build pretty much up to their property line, correct?
Build up to their property line, not full lot coverage, but then if you're building on an accessory unit, it requires one off-street parking spot, so now you need a parking pad on your property. So it just continues to grow and grow, and that would be for, most properties within the center area. You would lose all the open space on lots and stuff, and would really start to lose the character of the community. And you've seen that with some of the larger houses with larger garages being built and additions that are being put on, which is most of what the permits are that we're getting these days are for additions, renovations.
And just
that
for
sort of thing.
clarity, when it says dwelling, that includes everything, including the steps? Does it also include like patio?
Yeah, it would be anything on the lot. Well, I'm not sure. So I think in the historic district, we've allowed porches to encroach into the setback and into the right of way if it met the character of the community. But outside of porches that were already part of a previous development, it's looking at the larger structure, larger renovations, additions, accessory dwelling units, sheds, garages. I mean, it's really trying to reel those, few hundred square feet, 1,000 square feet additions, more than those, kind of 50 to 75. Not that those shouldn't be looked at, but that wasn't the purpose for this lot of record issue.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tim. Any other questions or comments? Council, we're going to do a roll call vote on ordinance 1087. Council President Ring Soccer,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Robertson,
Aye.
Councilmember Zinner,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Shanegas.
Yes.
By roll call vote of 6-0 in the affirmative, ordinance 1087, amending Chapter 205 zoning as pertains to a lot of record, is adopted on first reading. Council President, public hearing.
How about October 3rd?
Okay, October 3rd, following ordinance 1086.
Perfect.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you very much. Item C, ordinance concerning agreement with the Havre Grace Green Team. And I'm going to hand this off to the liaison to the Havre Grace Green Team, and that's going to be Councilmember Boyer.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I make a motion to introduce ordinance concerning the agreement with the Havre Grace Green Team for the food forest at Todd Park.
Second.
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Boyer, second by Councilmember Martin. This is to introduce an ordinance. Questions or comments on the introduction? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion to introduce an ordinance concerning an agreement with Havre Grace Green Team for the food forest at Todd Parks carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Madam Secretary, can you please read the header of this ordinance into the record and assign it a number, please?
Yes, this will be ordinance 1088, an ordinance by the mayor and city council of Havre de Grace, Maryland, adopted pursuant to the authority of Article 11E of the Maryland Constitution, the local government article of the annotated code of Maryland, and sections 33 and 34 of the Havre de Grace City Charter, to enter into an agreement with the Havre de Grace Green Team Ltd. as it relates to a food forest on city property at Todd Park.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Council, I have a motion to adopt ordinance 1088 on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Shanegas? Oh, Councilmember Boyer?
First.
First, second.
Who had the first?
Boyer.
You got a second? Okay. Thank you very much. Councilmember Boyer with a motion and seconded by Councilmember Shanegas. Thank you. Questions or comments? Councilmember Boyer.
Mayor, as we heard tonight, there's a huge benefit to this. But one thing that wasn't said is that I believe some of the fruit, the intention is for it to be, my daughter is in the process of calling me, pardon me. For the fruit to be donated to local, available for people to come pick, but also available for food pantries. So it clearly has a huge benefit, not just making a park that really doesn't have anything happening on it look beautiful, the involvement of the community to plant the trees and learn more about growing fruit, and then, of course, bearing fruit for our community. So I encourage everyone to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyer. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Shanegas?
Yes, I too agree that it is a fabulous program. Seeing it grow over the last 3 years that I've been involved has really shown that it's welcomed and well received by our community, and it enhances the quality of the area in respect to having the park there. There's a lot of kids that come out and about. They can feel free to go by and pick a piece of fruit and enjoy life's offerings. So I just want to continue to see the Todd Forest Food Park evolve and encourage families and individuals to get involved. It's a great way to build community, and it's a great way to give back and also to receive delicious fruit. I have a serviceberry tree along with my daughter.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Shanegas.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Council, we're going to do a roll call vote on the first reading of ordinance 1088. Councilmember Robertson.
Aye.
Councilmember Zinner.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin.
Yes.
Council President Ringsager.
Yes, I'm going to have to look into adopting a tree myself.
Councilmember Shanegas.
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer.
Yes. you can help me with my cherry tree. It always looks like it's about to die.
By roll call vote of 6-0 in the affirmative, City Council Ordinance 1088 is adopted on its first reading. Council President, when would you like to have the public hearing?
How about October 3rd?
Okay, we'll do October 3rd for public hearing, filing ordinance 1086, 1087, preceding the council meeting. Thank you very much. Item D, an ordinance concerning a tax waiver, and that's going to hand that off to the council president.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I make a motion to introduce an ordinance concerning a tax waiver for 1830 Pulaski Highway for first reading.
So moved.
Council, I have a motion by the council president, seconded by Councilmember Robertson. This is a motion to introduce an ordinance on first reading. Questions or comments on the introduction of this ordinance? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion to introduce an ordinance concerning a tax waiver for 1830 Pulaski Highway carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Madam Secretary, can you please read the header of this ordinance into the record, and please assign this ordinance a number?
Yes, this will be ordinance 1089, an ordinance by the mayor and city council of Havre, Grace, Maryland, adopted pursuant to the authority of Article 11E of the Maryland Constitution, the local government article of the annotated code of Maryland, and sections 33 and 34 of the Havre, Grace City Charter, to waive a portion of property taxes for property located at 1830 Pulaski Highway, tax ID number 06-002501.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Council will have a motion to adopt 1089 on first reading.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Councilmember Martin, seconded by Councilmember Shenegis. Questions or comments? Council President.
As people will remember from previous meetings, we had a very similar ordinance. I'd like to refer to the Director of Administration for just a quick summary.
Certainly. So we went through the same experience with the Dorothy Lewis property. These were annexed back in 2018, 2019 timeframe. We were of the impression that this one had made it through. It had not. We learned only about this after the property actually changed hands. And the new owner got the tax bill. This would be the, if you're familiar with those sections of properties that were annexed, it was the Dorothy Lewis property, and then this one was the, where the Cork and Barrel is. So this property's, basically it's under the same conditions as the previous one.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Camtoria. Any other questions or comments? Council, I'm going to do a roll call vote on ordinance 1089. Council President?
Yes.
Councilmember Robertson?
Aye.
Councilmember Zinner?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer? Yes. Councilmember Shenegis?
Yes.
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
By roll call vote of 6-0 in the affirmative, City Council Ordinance 1089 is adopted by council on first reading. Council President, would you like to have the public hearing?
How about October 3rd?
Okay, we're going to have the public hearing on Ordinance 1089 on Monday, October 3rd, preceding the City Council meeting, and after Ordinance 1086, 1087, 1088, then we'll do 1089. Thank you very much, Council. We're going to go to item 13, Old Business. And under Old Business, we have an amendment to a special event. Mr. Gambatoria.
Council may recall that earlier this year we passed an event application for all the farmers markets to occur down at the 100 block of St. John Street. This coming weekend is the Susquehanna River Running Festival. The farmers market came to us about 2 weeks ago. The River Running Festival and the farmers were trying to work out a viable alternative since the race runs through the 100 block of St. John Street. The farmers then contacted me, I think about a week and a half or so ago, and asked if they could move temporarily for this coming weekend to the Star Center. And we wanted to run that by council and ratify that prior to giving them full green light to move forward. But we think for all purposes, based on the number of runners that are coming to the event, which seems to be an increase over the last couple of years, that this may work the best. The farmers are working on social media to make sure everyone knows. They felt like beside the actual race running through the where the market typically is, the road closures throughout the city, because of the size of the event, would prevent people from getting down to the market. So the administration feels like this is a good move. It's temporary. The farmers are very willing to take it on. If council approves this, we'll need DPW just to drop barricades off at Congress and Juniata and Congress and North Adams Street. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Council, I have a motion to amend this special event application.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by the Council President, second by Councilmember Martin. Any questions or comments on this amendment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The amendment to the special event application for the change of location of the Farmers Market to the Star Center on the day of the Susquehanna River Running Festival, 9/24/2022, is approved. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. Gamatoria. Item 14, new business. This evening we have no business. No new business. No new business. And item 15, Director's Report. We're going to start off with the Director of Administration. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I would like to thank Mr. Boursier for doing such a great job with the presentation this evening, and also the number of zoning ordinances and other ordinances and committees that you're leading within the city. Mayor and Council, I think we, in the words of former Council President Glenn, we hit a grand slam with Mr. Boursier being hired. So I do appreciate all your hard work on that. It's what you're working on is not the easy stuff. It's not the cream at the top. It's very difficult, and anytime you get into ordinances that impact zoning, they are quite controversial. So thank you for all that. Mayor, the only other request I would have this evening is late in the day I received a text from Mr. Fillinger from the Parks and Recreation. And rather than wait to the next meeting, what he's asking for again is a augmentation to his Halloween event application. So I just received it. It's pretty basic. Rather than go through another council meeting and event amendment, he's basically asking to start the Halloween parade at 4 p.m. instead of 4:30. So if council can find it within their hearts to allow that to occur, then I can let him know and we can just move this forward and not have to deal with it again.
Council President.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to amend the application from Parks and Rec to allow the 4 p.m. start time instead of 4:30 for the parade.
Second.
Okay, hold on one second.
Is it usually that early?
I think it's for
Council, I have a motion by the Council President, seconded by Councilmember Shenegis to amend the start time of the Halloween parade? Is it Halloween parade?
It's the trick or treat and the activities they have downtown.
Yeah, the Halloween event from 4:30 to 4 o'clock. Any questions or comments?
Can you just remind me, did we close down the streets for that? I know we had talked about it, I can't remember.
To be quite honest with you, I don't remember what the final outcome of that was because he had kind of changed the format from being down at Congress to back up on Pennington near Lodge. I think the road closures, council wound up implementing those because the year before we didn't, and it was a little bit dangerous.
Yeah, the kids were just everywhere, the cars,
Yeah, I think it's closed.
That's good.
Any other questions?
I just want to clarify, it was second by Councilmember Boyer.
Oh, sorry. Was it? Okay, sorry.
We sound alike.
Gotta keep.
Motion by Council President, second by Councilmember Boyer. really hard to tell. I can't. I'm not looking at you. I can't tell them. Sorry, I mean no disrespect. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Council President's motion is approved. Start time for the Halloween event be 4 o'clock. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Camatoria?
Now, the only thing, just a reminder, both DPW and PD, with both those changes that we've approved tonight, adjust your schedules based on that. Thanks. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Director of Planning, Mr. Tim Boursier.
I'll be brief, so nobody changes their positive opinions about me if I speak too long. We have a planning commission meeting next Monday at 6:30. We'll be discussing some of these ordinances that we have tonight and the short-term rental ordinance, as well as our comprehensive plan update. It'll be the kickoff with the planning commission on that date. And so just a reminder to everyone here and at home that we have our Envision Havre de Grace story maps up that where we look to inspire and collect information and input from people to see how Havre de Grace should grow over the next 20 years or so. So you can find all that online on the Havre de Grace website. Again, that's Envision Havre de Grace. And just lastly, we spoke a lot about different softwares tonight, about host compliance software with short-term rentals. I think all this is a push by my department to sort of modernize things for the city. So one other software that we've been looking at is to allow online permitting, online payment, that sort of thing. And we've come a long way. Been working with Jeff Thompson in IT, and we've worked with a few different software companies. We're starting to have people come in. So on Thursday, we'll have a demonstration from a company from New Jersey who was at Maryland Municipal League. They've worked in New Jersey alone for a long period of time, and they're starting to branch out. And they're going to demonstrate not just what they can do for permitting in my department, but what they could do for public works, what they can do for citizens to be involved in the process. So it's really interesting stuff. Just saying we're moving forward on more modernization type stuff, and not to get that confused with software that we speak about every time I mention something. There's a different type of software, but we're looking to just move forward and modernize our processes. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much for the update, sir. Thank you. And thanks again for the short-term rental ordinance presentation. Good evening, Ms. Bridget Johnson, Director of Economic Development and Tourism.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and citizens at home. A couple of quick updates. One, last week we had to cancel our public arts trolley tour because our tour guide was ill. So we have rescheduled it for October 5th with additional details to follow in the near future. We're going to contact the individuals who have signed up for the original tour first to see if they are still interested. If they are not, then we'll have a couple of open seats. The RFP for the electric shuttle bus has been released. It is on our website. The last day to submit an RFP is September 30th. We want everyone to know that. We have 3 good companies so far, but we will go to the end date of September 30th, and we hope to make a decision by the second week of October. We are also releasing the RFP for the construction of the public pier at the foot of Green Street. That RFP should be on our website next week with a start date of hopefully December. Maryland Economic Development Week is October 24th through the 28th. Save the date. Mr. Mayor and several of our council members participated in this last year. We're going to do things a little different this year, but we will be celebrating in the city of Havre de Grace again, October 24th through the 28th. And this is the event where we normally visit our local businesses and give them an award or recognize them in some type of way. Let me see. We've recently received 2 applications for the facade improvement grant program. I mention that every time at the council meetings because every time I mention it, a new business applies, and this grant is for the purpose of helping our businesses. So we have 2 that recently applied. We have funding available, so please, for any small businesses located in the Main Street District, and in need of grant funding for facade or interior improvements, we have funding available through our Main Street program. Tourism, we have a lot going on in tourism and marketing. One, we have the Havre Digital Marketing Solutions, Mr. Lee Schaefer on board. He is awesome. So we are in the process of revamping the Explore Havre Grace website, the Instagram page, and the Twitter page. We hope to have this completed by the end of the year. And from that new look, we will have a new look to the events page. If you look at the current events page that we have right now, it is due for a total reconstruction. Lee is working and assisting us with everything economic development and tourism related, and we'll be looking into other marketing opportunities for him for the city. We've also started working and planning for the annual Winter Wonderland and Holly Jolly First Friday December event, as December is quickly approaching. And speaking of softwares, the city, the Department of Economic Development and Tourism, purchased a software called Zartico in partnership with Visit Hartford and the town of Bel Air and the Arts Collective. And this information we will collect data on all visitors, tourists, or even ourselves that visit the city of Havre Grace, because you are tracked by your cell phone. It's not personal information. You're already tracked by your cell phone. You've been tracked by your cell phones for years. I have to keep telling people this. If you have your location monitor on. So it's a great way for us, particularly doing events. And we have the Celtic Festival coming up, that if we have someone stay in a hotel in Aberdeen, we'll get a ping on their cell phone. They purchase a ticket here, or if they come into the city, have dinner at any of our restaurants, or pretty much shop in any of our stores, we're able to track those individuals. This is good for us in tourism because we finally have hard data to back up the 100,000 visitors that we know we receive every single year to the city. So this software will not launch until November, but we're looking forward to it. I will remind you again because we're just all about the numbers. It also helps with our grant funding, and even when we come before you for additional funding in our budget. That's all I have this evening. If anyone has any questions, I am here.
Any questions for Ms. Johnson? Councilmember Boyer?
So you were talking about data.
Yes.
Now is a wonderful time to assess where we were with the Visit Havre Grace webpage versus the improvements. Is that the plan? And when will you be able to report out for maybe like in the next quarter?
Yes, well, great question, because we had a meeting on that today. So it would probably be early next year, because the new, the improvements to the website are going to be taking place between now and December. So if I launch it early in November or something, then we'll be able to look in January or February, or the numbers prior to launching it. So what we have right now, like we finally talked to our provider today, and it was information that they were not providing us.
Okay.
So as of today, we're going to get on Google Analytics, because this is just basic.
Be able to track like where the visitors
Absolutely.
are coming from, what regions, et cetera, so you can.
Well, that and just
Interrupt your
tracking
advertising.
how many people visit our website a day or month, you would think that we have that information, but we do not. So all of this will be taking place within the next 2 to 3 months.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. Good evening, Mr. Horty, Director of Finance. How goes it?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. It's going well. Thank you, sir. The current situation with our major funds are as follows. The general fund is sitting with a fund balance of a little over $10 million, an increase of $8.4 million for the year. Revenues are just under $12.3 million, consisting primarily of real property taxes of $9.4 million and grants of $1.8. Our expenses year to date have been just under $3.9 million, primarily payroll and benefits, $2.4 million, operations about $800,000, capital projects were only about $180,000, and debt service $137,000. Fund 9 is sitting currently at a fund deficit of 217. Not to be totally concerned, this happens 1 month every quarter when it's our least billing month. And the operating expenses are much more consistent than the revenue stream because we bill in quarters. And it seems like every 3 months, I have to tell you, we fell into a deficit. But as always, I expect us to be out of it by the end of by the next meeting, actually. Revenues are at 1.65 million, and the service fees that I talked about have made up 1.4 of that. Year-to-date expenses are at 1.4 million. Payroll is it's split about 50-50 between payroll and other operating costs. Our capital revenues are just under $275,000. So connection fees and our infrastructure replacement fees make up those. Capital spending has been about $870,000, including debt service payments of about $280,000. The Marina Fund, the fund balance is sitting at a little over $1 million, a slight decrease year-to-date of about $50,000. Again, not unusual since most of the slip billings go later in the year. So you've heard me say it every year around this time. Revenues have been about $115,000, of which $90,000 is fuel sales. Our expenses are at about $170,000. Fuel purchases are about $80,000, and payroll about $35,000. And we've done about $7,000 in capital projects as we're sprucing up the marina. And that's the condition of the three funds as of this morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Doherty. Any council members have a question for Mr. Doherty? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council.
Good evening, Mr. Merlizer, Director of Public Works.
Good evening, everyone. I have a few updates from the Department of Public Works. Our city engineer is reviewing the design from stormwater management to enable approved pickleball courts at the community center. A pre-construction meeting will be conducted within the next few weeks, 2 weeks rather. I will follow up with you as the project progresses. I've been working with the Maryland Department of Transportation to improve the city's park and ride lot at Otsego and Juniata. Our intent is to address the lighting, landscape maintenance, debris, and broken glass. We will monitor the maintenance and housekeeping of the area closely with the state. The Bully Rock Tower is nearing completion. We're currently awaiting a few gallons of special paint that has been delayed in shipping. We've applied a template logo to one side of the tower, and we will apply the second logo template to the other side this week. Once the rest of the paint arrives, we will proceed with painting the logo on both sides and certifying the tower. The water line replacement on Green Street is underway. Contractors have completed the area from Adams to Centennial. The project is progressing as scheduled. The water treatment plant has successfully completed an extensive 3-day comprehensive performance evaluation by the Maryland Department of Environment. MDE's evaluation was thorough and focused on optimizing the city's water treatment operations. I'm happy to report the water treatment plant has met or exceeded all MDE regulatory requirements. Finally, I want to give a big DPW thank you to Cole Higgins, who is leaving our street side crew to join Havre de Grace Police Department. Lieutenant Humphrey, you got a good one. And that's all.
Thank you very much, sir. Any questions? Councilmember Zinner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. EJ, could you comment a little bit more on some of the discussions that have been going on around town regarding the smell of the water? I know, I realize what you're saying about the MDE assessment, but, I know that I've had sediment in my toilets. I use filtered water out of my refrigerator, so I don't drink any of the water, but I don't smell anything either in terms of a foul odor, but I know that's been reported. So I was just wondering if you could comment on that. And also, I think last time you commented a little bit on the back order on charcoal as one of the causes, but I may have that wrong. So I just want to give you an opportunity to talk about it a little bit.
So the concerns regarding the taste or smell is usually seasonal and harmless. I've been informed a few different concerns from residents. However, I've been assured, I'm sure many who've lived locally can comment on that. It's been seasonal. And in regard to your other question with the sediment, so from my understanding, with anything involving the sediment, may be related to air in the line involving the tower, Bully Rock Tower. So as mentioned, the tower coming up should solve a lot of those issues, and flushing the lines is always a good procedure that we'll follow once the tower is up and it meets certification.
Okay, so the tower coming online, is that contingent on getting all the painting done and the logos put on, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So do you have an idea when the tower might come online?
The last update I had is we're waiting on the paint. So once the paint arrives, we'll be able to certify the tower.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Boyer?
I just want to pick up on the conversation. Just want to confirm, EJ, that it's more appropriate for when people have concerns about things in regards to DPW, whether it be the water or streets or access to different things, that it's more appropriate for them to call into City Hall so that somebody within the administration is aware of it versus posting it up on Facebook and other social media sites, because I don't think you monitor that as much, correct?
I will comment that I do not have social media, so I don't stay up to date. If there are complaints, I probably should. The majority of the complaints I field are from the Department of Public Works shop, which we have a executive assistant down there that will refer the complaint, and I will try to field each resident's concern on a case-by-case basis.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyer. Council President.
I can comment on the water. As long as I've lived here in Havre Grace since I was a kid, every summer it gets the same way. It's I can't remember the name of the chemical, but it's what makes dirt smell like dirt. You can't really get it out of the water, but we've been trying to double filter the water, correct, with the charcoal filter. This happens every summer at the end of the summer. So when the crabs start...
Temperature related.
It's temperature related,
It hits
yeah.
a certain temperature.
So when the water starts getting more brackish and the crabs start coming up, that's the same time the water starts stinking and, you know, just getting like a little bit off flavor. But it goes away. You know, Loch Raven Reservoir, I drive it over every day and just saw that completely empty last week, and this week it's back full again. We got lots of rain earlier, I guess, last week. And, you know, that's what, and the rain up north, pushing that down, when it starts cooling temperatures, water's going to start tasting a lot better. It's just something we can't control, and we do try. We do make it a little bit better, but, you know, we get seasonal things around here. Every spring we get the black drum fish die off after they spawn, you know, and everybody complains, you know, must be chemicals in the water because the fish are dying. You know, it's a natural process. Every year we go through the same thing. So just be patient with us. We're doing what we can to make sure the water's palatable. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Council President. Like I said, people at home need to understand, the people who lived in Havre Grace since the 1600s, we get our drinking water from the river. We get surface water as our drinking water source. A lot of towns in the country, and especially people out in the county, get well water. Well, well water's, you know, it's been sinking through the ground for, you know, 50 to 100 feet in filters, but we get surface water. And as Council President said, there's a variety of reasons why the water tastes like that, but mostly when the water hits a certain temperature, usually around August, the water tastes like the river smells. And I'll tell people all the time, it's very difficult to remove the smell. The water's perfect. I mean, the water's been treated the same way we always treat it. But I always tell, you know, I told my kids the other day, just because we put fresh hard-boiled eggs in the refrigerator and we open up an hour later and the whole refrigerator stinks doesn't mean the food's not bad. You know, can't eat the food, but it's the same thing. So, like I said, it's every year we get the phone calls, but folks who've been here for a while, they know that's just part of Havre Grace living. So, thank you, Council President. Thank you, sir. Lieutenant Humphreys.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, members of the public, I have one thing. Just recently, we received a request for a road closure from Ms. Cheryl Coleman at the Havre Grace College School. They're requesting, they're going to have a health, wealthy, and wise community event. It's free to everybody. They're going to present for scholarships, AARP, all public information. That's Saturday, October 1st, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The reason why she requested that is we told her we could not close the road, only in emergency, that it required the mayor and city council to do that. So with that in mind, I'm asking you, Mayor, if they can close that road. And what they want to do is close it from the parking lot to Alliance Street. So they can set up for vendors, the health bus, and things like that.
Okay. What's the date is again?
The first.
October 1st.
Mayor, so they're not asking for any city services, correct?
No city services.
Just a road closure.
The only thing they want is DPW to drop the barricades off, they will set them up, they will take them down.
So if they're going to close that section of road, they can't close it at their parking lot. They're going to have to close it back at the intersection at Lewis. Because if not, cars could come down there, then they hit a dead-end barricade, and then they have to make a three-point turn to get back. So if they shut it off at Lewis and Stokes, and then Stokes and Alliance, and they don't require any DPW or police activity, I don't think we have any issues with that. But
Council President, you have any issues with it? Something council want to weigh in on? Councilmember Boyer?
Are there other residents? I don't know. Are there other houses there? Do we have to like coordinate? Because, I mean, that would prevent them from getting in out of their parking lot.
There is one house next to the parking lot.
603.
Yeah, so they would have to be agreeable for that period of time to not be able to get to their driveway.
And what's the time frame again?
Pardon?
The time frame?
Time frame is from 10 to 2.
Okay.
Now, they could do it, like, we could give them an extra set of barricades, so that making it so that nobody can come up that street, but barricade just to the end of their property line, so that Ms. Ruth can get out if they're not planning to use that whole space, right?
I'm not sure I understand it. 2 barricades. You have to barricade it so no vehicle traffic can come onto Stokes past to Lewis. And that's going to block the driveway for the 601. If they're agreeable to it for that 4-hour period of time, then it's a non-issue. And that's the.
Well, I make a motion that we allow the street closure as indicated, October 1st, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Lewis and Stokes to Alliance and Stokes.
Second.
Council, I have a motion by Councilman Robertson, second by Council President. Questions or comments? Councilmember Boyer?
Do we need to add on to that to make it so that it's dependent upon the property owner? I can't see the numbers. It's 603?
Yes.
At 603 South Stokes Street. Can you accept that as a friendly amendment?
No. I think, I have faith that Ms. Cole and all could work out an arrangement with the property owner there.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. 6-0, carries. There you go, Lieutenant. Anything else, sir?
No, that's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we're going to go to item 16, business from Mayor's office. Just want to say a couple things real quick. I want to congratulate Miss Bambi Johnson, who works for special events for the city of Havre de Grace, and the folks from the city working together to pull off this year's Waterfront Festival. It was a nice event. It took place last Friday and Saturday, and the weather was good. The music was good. We had a wonderful boat parade. I want to thank Miss Lindsay Jones, who is one of our best volunteers at the tourism office, for pulling off the second annual Havre de Grace Lighted Boat Parade, which has really caught on to be something special. And I really think it's going to be an annual event for the city of Havre de Grace. There had been 500 or 600 people on Friday night watching that boat parade. It was a wonderful event. And then Saturday, we had some great bands. We had wonderful merchandise and crafts vendors. We had great food trucks. And we had a wonderful fireworks display. Again, I want to thank our Director of Administration for working closely with the firework company, working closely with Vulcan, who generously comes and delivers an old barge that we can load fireworks on and then anchors off the point so we can watch fireworks. The fireworks were really good quality fireworks. And again, the Waterfront Festival was a really nice time this weekend. Want to remind everybody, 3 years ago, a delegation from our city and citizens, a few elected officials and a handful of our citizens, went to Wales over in the United Kingdom, and more specifically went to a little town called Mumbles, which is on the southern coast of Wales near the bigger city of Swansea. And it was there that I had the honor and privilege of signing the city of Havre de Grace into a twinning charter because we twinned with and looked like the town of Mumbles. The town of Mumbles has a promenade. They have a lighthouse. They have a bay. They have problems with their water and sewer infrastructure. You know, people complain about more parks or whatever. I mean, the point is, it's very funny how you can go 3,000 miles across the ocean and you see a nice little community on the water situated just like we are, and their council and their people share a lot of the same things we do, the good and the good things and the challenges as well. So on September 7th, 2019, I know I was there, and Councilmember Boyer was with me on this trip, and Councilmember Zinner, along with Ms. Debbie Stathis and a lot of other folks from Havre de Grace, and we entered into this twinning agreement. Everyone that was there paid for their own trip. This was done something out of charity and curiosity. We thought it was cool that we would partner up with some friends. So 3 years later, I mean, they wanted the Mumbles folks haven't been to Havre de Grace yet. They were going to come in 2020, and then COVID happened. They were going to come in 2021, but COVID was kind of still happening. But now they're coming the end of this month, and they will be here September 29th, and they'll depart on October 5th. So we have a great itinerary for them. So we're going to be giving a great tour of Havre de Grace. They're actually going to go see a Havre de Grace High School football game. They're going to visit our museums. They're going to tour Conowingo Dam. They're going to go to great dinners, cocktail parties at citizens' houses, Havre de Grace haunt tour. They're going to do all kind of fun things that we have here in Havre de Grace for them to do, as well as other things in the region. And October 3rd, at the next city council meeting, if we get through all the public hearings, we're going to be doing the American side of the signing of the twinning charter. So it's going to be pretty special. Let me tell you something about this charter that I signed. It was made out of like some kind of like goat skin or something like that. It was like, it looked like something Henry VIII made, you know, like the Magna Carta or something like that.
The guy
Before
you signed
Henry
it with looked like Henry VIII too.
It was like all these hieroglyphics on there and all these crests and shields and all that. The city of, you know, the town of Mumbles and the city of Havre de Grace, and one side was in Welsh and one side was in English. And then I remember them telling me, you know, they gave me like little blank strips of like goat skin and had me sign my name like 10 times to make sure I wouldn't mess it up before I signed that charter because it was very expensive. They like only a handful of people can still do goat skin charters like that. So it's kind of neat. And right now, I saw it on Facebook on the Mumbles twinning page. That charter we signed is like on display in an exhibit at some calligraphy museum in England. So I don't think the one they're bringing over here is that, but it's identical, but maybe not the same material. But anyway, we'll do that here on October 3rd. But also want to extend our condolences to our friends from Wales, who just recently lost their long-reigning monarch, Queen Elizabeth II. And of course, anybody that woke up this morning wanting to catch the weather or the traffic, good luck. Every channel was had the funeral of Queen Elizabeth. And very interesting. Many people know I teach 8th grade U.S. history, and like right now in my curriculum, we're teaching the causes of the American Revolutionary War. So it's like, Bad King, Stamp Act and the Townsend Act and the Tea Act and the Sugar Act, Navigation Act and the Tarboro Acts and all these other acts, and, writs of assistance, and trying to teach kids Parliament was harsh and England was cruel and King George was, intolerant. And then you have teachers walking around wearing black because they're so sad the Queen died. I'm trying to explain it to the kids. The kids are saying, Mr. Martin, do we like these people or not? I was like, and so I was just trying to really explain to my students, how families always fight, and it's all about perspective and context. And so we had a good talk about Queen Elizabeth to my students. And so, it's interesting. Kids always ask me, well, are monarchies relevant anymore? And, I would always give them both sides of an opinion. I really never had an opinion one way or the other. I mean, I really like our system of government, of course. But, it's interesting. The world leaders were at that funeral. When you're looking at Westminster Abbey today and you saw over 500 leaders from around the world coming to give thanks and appreciation to a lady who served her people with honor and dignity for 70 years on the throne, longer than that as a princess. And the thing that popped out at me is the greatest example of leadership was the one person that wasn't elected. It was interesting when you think, I'll just kind of leave that right there. And everything she did, she didn't do for votes. Tirelessly for 70 years, she had to meet people and greet people and travel to the countries of her Commonwealth and be the example of her people, of conduct, of steadfastness. And she never did it for votes. And so, like I said, let's leave that right there. It's kind of interesting. And so she's a very good leader, and I think history will always remember her. So our friends in Wales will be here at the end of the month, and we will be flying the Welsh flag where appropriate around the city. And if you're walking around town and you hear somebody pronounce something a little differently, say hi to them and welcome them to the city of Havre. So with that said, we're going to continue with. Yeah, you can tell they're not from Aberdeen. Aberdeen, Scotland. Anyway, so we're going to continue with our comments from council, and we're going to go Councilmember Robertson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members, city staff, ladies and gentlemen here and at home. It kind of stinks that they won't be around for First Friday in October, I know. But hey, just a couple quick things. Number one is Budget and Finance Committee will be meeting here tomorrow, 4 p.m. It's a standing meeting. It should be on everybody's calendar. The Economic Development Advisory Board will be meeting here 9/21, that's this Wednesday at 4 p.m. And the Youth Commission will be meeting this week, 9/22, that's Thursday at 7 p.m., most likely in the large conference room. I just want to say that within the past week, I had the opportunity to check out production of Rent down at the State Theater, and then 1 week later, within the same week, a production of Cats at the Opera House. And I just want to say congratulations to Jared and Katie down at the State Theater and their troupe, and Bambi Johnson. You've heard her name a few times tonight, but she was also a mainstay in the Tidewater Players and in the production of Cats. So kudos to them. I just love the fact that within 1 week I got to see two well-done productions within walking distance of my house at two different venues. So that's something to be proud of. And Mr. Mayor, that's it.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Robertson. Good evening, Councilmember Shenanigans.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Administration, and those of you in the audience and at home. Well, the seasons are changing, and with that, we have a lot going on. School's in full swing. Sports are out there winning and playing against other neighboring towns and schools, and it's a lot happening. And life is busy. I just want to encourage everyone to, slow down a little bit and enjoy some of the finer things. Take time to spend with your family. Go to these events. Go to some of our festivals that are coming out and about. But also just be careful out there. Everyone's busy, and just stay focused on why we're here, to get to our destinations in a safe place and to attend school and get a little extra sleep so that you learn everything that you need to get you through the day, and, eat well, and just, take good care of yourself, because we're all here together for a common goal with our families. And as the season's changing and things are starting up, new things are going to be closing down. We want to thank the Ambulance Corps for their dedication the last 3 years with their Sunday Fun Day food trucks. This will be their last one this coming Sunday from 4 to 7 p.m. Try to come out and enjoy some time with your family. And there's food, there's music, there's vendors, and especially wonderful people from the Ambulance Corps to thank for all of their service. And I want to thank all of you for taking time to support our city by watching and viewing in. And if you don't have an opportunity, it's always recorded, and the notes are online if you want to know more about what's going on in our city. And we also, with everything coming up with events, we could always use more volunteers. If you have a little extra time in your schedule, please reach out to the different commissions and even the local restaurants, etc. They need help, and they welcome, ideas from volunteers in the community. Get involved. This is your city. Own it. Become a part of it. And be sure to ride the trolley before it goes to sleep this winter. Thank you, everyone. Back to you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilor Shanegas. Good evening, Councilmember Martin.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council President, Council, administration staff, and those hardy souls in the audience that braved the end of this meeting, as well as those at home. Tourism Advisory Board will be meeting this Wednesday at the Council Hall at 10 a.m. As Councilmember Shanegas said, the Sunday Fun Day is closing, but this is actually a good news, bad news. They are closing it permanently. This will be their last event. So come out and support them and give them that one last thank you for giving us alternatives. They gave us alternatives during the COVID-19. As they said, they've run it to the end. On Wednesday, on their website, they will have the names of the food trucks and the vendors that will be there, so you can check their website out and actually see who will be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Martin. Good evening, Councilmember Boyer.
Good evening, Mayor. Just let everybody know that on the 26th at 6 p.m. we will have the Street and Traffic Safety meeting. We had, I believe it was last week. It's all kind of, no, on the 8th. We had our tree commission meeting. It was a very productive meeting. There was recommendations made on priority locations. Once we start filling up the streets, I believe the focus was Congress and Union. The recommendation is Washington Street and Revolution to try to start filling in our spaces for new trees when it comes time for our tree planting again. Another recommendation was made, and for consideration, is to start looking at 155 and see if there's a way for us to start planting trees along 155, because a lot of those trees are, again, getting older, and it's the entrance into our city, and that just kind of will keep the look and feel of Havre going. It was also identified that that would be a really great location for our Arbor Day celebration, hopefully in partnership with somebody along 155. This week, actually, last week on the 14th, I went to the Lock House for their annual meeting. It was pretty well attended. They have redone a lot of the exhibits inside, and they're focusing their exhibits now on this community of people who really like the history of the lock system down the Susquehanna. And it's pretty impressive if you haven't been there. They've really stepped up the quality of the presentation, the quality of the displays, and it's well worth going and seeing and just to get to know a little bit more about the history of the lock system and just to get a little bit more information about what happened here in Havre de Grace to create that long transportation system down the Susquehanna. This last Saturday on the 17th, I had the honor of celebrating and presenting a proclamation on behalf of the City Council to the Buffalo Soldiers in Aberdeen. They were celebrating their 10th anniversary, a great raucous group of people who had a wonderful time just celebrating, and they do a lot for the community, and they're not as visible as one would expect, but hopefully with encouragement they'll become even more visible. I asked them, they came last year for our 4th of July parade, asked them to come back again and also hopefully help with the distribution of food for our Thanksgiving meal. And that is about, oh, one last thing. That elementary school held their annual kickball, teachers versus students kickball event, and it was wonderful to see all of the kids out having fun, running around, screaming, just acting like kids normally again. And they had a wonderful pizza party for them, and it's great. So I want to highly encourage anybody out there, if you don't support the PTA in your schools, please support the PTA because they do they provide an extra value, not just to the teachers, but also to the students. And it helps encourage the community involvement. So please consider volunteering or donating to the PTA when they stop and ask you for money. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyer. Good evening, Councilmember Zinner.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, citizens. I have very short comments this evening, but I do want to extend my gratitude to the members of the Arts Commission for sponsoring and running the Children's Art Show on Saturday, September 10th. It was well attended, not quite as well attended as last year. I think everyone was anxious to get out last year after some of the COVID restrictions were lifted. But they did employ a new magician, Mr. Dave, and Mr. Dave was a great addition to the art show. We've had magicians in the past, but this gentleman had actually, he didn't make the finals, but he was on America's Got Talent, and he did one show instead of 2 or 3 shows that previous magicians have done. But what he did in advance was to walk around and sort of warm up the crowd and go over to the children in the playground, go over to the children that were waiting to get their faces painted and things like that. So they would be aware that this show was about to go on. And he had a great rapport with the kids. So we're looking forward to having him back next year. He was also very taken with Havre de Grace and plans to come back with his wife and family so that they could enjoy the city themselves without him working. So the Arts Commission will meet again on Tuesday, September 27th at 6:30. I also want to congratulate Bambi on all the work she did for the Waterfront Festival. And there are my comments for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Zinner. Thank you. Business from the council president.
October 3rd. Sorry,
It's going to be a busy night.
I too went to the Waterfront Festival and had a great time. You know, I did miss the boat parade because I was at the high school football game, and I wanted to participate in it. I'm glad I didn't because I've got a small boat, and it got pretty windy out there, and they were being tossed around. So it ended a little bit earlier than was actually on the schedule. I didn't make it. But the next day, I had a great time listening to the band, and it was really cool. And the fireworks started. The band was still playing about 2 more songs. And it was really neat. It was a great event, great for our city, great for tourism, just a ton of people down there. Also hit the Children's Art Show with my kids. this past weekend, did the Bark for Life and represented the city out there. Had a lot of fun time with my beagle running around the obstacle course and through the tunnels and stuff like that, and seeing all the people out there, supporting cancer research. Then I hit the Legion Oktoberfest, and Jason, you guys did a great job. It was very well attended. Tough to find somewhere to park. Between that and the Pyrex Festival downtown, there were a lot of people in Havre Grace. But the Havre Grace High School football game coming up is this Friday. It's going to be at Joppa, JV at 4 and varsity at 6. And I want to let people know out there, I'm not going to give any names or anything or talk about any HIPAA violation stuff, but the kid who did get hurt on Friday is expected to come home tomorrow, so he's okay. All right, and with that, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you very much, Council President, for that update. We're going to go to item number 18, adjournment. Got a motion to adjourn? So moved. A motion by Councilmember Martin, second by Councilmember Zinner. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion to adjourn carries 6-0 in the affirmative. The time is now 9:06. Thank you very much, everybody. Be safe and eat a good breakfast, good lunch, good dinner for October 3rd. We'll see you then.